Let's talk to Sally Mitchell, mortgage advisor and mortgage mum. Sally, we meet again, third time in a week, I reckon, isn't it?
I think it is. It's keeping us on our toes, Vanessa.
We've never needed your advice more, your help more, or your reassurance more. And it's getting harder and harder, I think, for you to give all of the above. So first of all, can you explain what Jeremy Hunt has tried to do? And then maybe you can tell me whether you think he's succeeded or not.
Right, okay. Well, I'm very pleased that he has addressed the sort of elephant in the room, which is obviously hundreds of thousands of people very, very worried about how they're going to afford their mortgages and what they're going to do when their fixed rate comes to an end. I wonder whether he's passing the buck slightly to the banks. Mm-hmm. But I welcome the conversation. I welcome them putting their heads together and coming up with ideas. I hope it'll do something to reassure and to quell the worry that I see all the time with people phoning me and getting in touch. Weirdly, everything that they have suggested, apart from the 12-month holiday before repossession process would start, which, to be honest, if you're looking down the barrel of a repossession, I'm not convinced a 12-month stay of execution is particularly welcoming. But all the things that he's mentioned really have been available. We've been suggesting them, advising them as an option since the budget, the mini budget in the autumn. And what's really interesting is that none of these so-called solutions or help actually cost the government or cost the lenders any money at all. It's all put back on the borrower. So things like extending your term, great.
Yeah.
But the longer the term, the more interest you end up paying. Going interest only, great, fab. But you don't pay down the capital, so you still have that outstanding, and that can stretch the term as well. So I'm very pleased about the credit report, it not appearing on file, but to be honest, changing mortgages like that doesn't really affect your credit file anyway. So I want to know more. I want more detail. I want to know if your term is already taking you up to your state retirement age. Can you extend? Can you go past that? What happens if you've got adverse in your history? Will they let you go on to interest only? How are they going to actually make it work? Is it going to be one of those things that's offered and actually in reality very few people can take advantage of? Plus, I'm on a real roll now. It doesn't really help purchasers and it doesn't help first-time buyers. There are an awful lot of people on fixed-term mortgages, obviously. It's the most popular by far. But also, how long is it going to last for? Because there's 1.5 million coming up to the end of their fixed rate between now and the end of next year. So are they going to keep this going for 18 months? Or, is it just going to be till Christmas? Because we're in the middle of this crisis and they're saying that interest rates will hit 6%. So we're only at 5%. So is it going to be enough? Is it going to help enough people? What about help to buy? What about landlords, buy to let? I just wonder whether it's a bit of a sticking plaster on a very, very big wound.
I mean, it's interesting to see the concern and the worry in your face and in your voice, because to me, listening to you and also to Jeremy Hunt, I can't help comparing it with what happened in the late 1980s after Black Wednesday, when interest rates went up to 14% and in some cases up to 16%. People looked at what they were earning. They looked at what they were paying their mortgages. It was absolutely terrifying and horrifying. You suddenly found that you had, £27 to live on for the whole month after you paid your mortgage, or indeed nothing to live on at all, and you didn't have the money to pay your mortgage, and you certainly couldn't afford to pay your mortgage, eat, buy your children a pair of shoes. You didn't know what to do. There was abject panic. But I don't recall then, and maybe I just don't recall it, but I don't think that at that point there were these moves made to, for example, give you a year before your house was repossessed, because in a year a lot can change. I mean, I know you say you're looking down the barrel of a gun, but you're looking down the barrel of a gun, you're being told you're not going to get shot for a year. It's better than right now. You know, anything could happen during the course of a year. It helps. It must help because it takes the immediate heat and urgency out. It delays it a bit. It kicks it into the long grass a little bit, gives you a chance to regroup a little bit. And all the different ways in which, you know, Jeremy Hunt is trying to do something to give us sort of, and it may be a temporary salve, you're quite right, and it may be a sticking plaster, but something. Because what I remember last time, and to me, I don't know if I was wrong or not, but to me, it didn't feel like there was anything. And I must say, you know, in the last few weeks, people keep coming up to me, people who watch the show, people who listen to this programme, and I see them in the street or at work, I'm working in other buildings or whatever, and they say, you know, in the 80s, we lost our house, Vanessa, you know, and they talk about how many decades afterwards they were still paying for the consequences of that financially, that they could never get another home to own again. They've been in rented accommodation all their lives, you know, that kind of a thing. So to me, there's some sweet music in hearing Jeremy Hunt at least jumping up and down trying to do something, but maybe you think I'm wrong.
No, not at all. I think, as I say, I welcome the conversation. I think it's a step in the right direction. I want to know more. I just want to know the details to see how many people it's actually going to affect, because they're very good at, you know, coming out with the sound bites, but we haven't heard the full details yet, and I just want to know a little bit more before I.
Tell me, Sally, when you talk to your clients at the moment, these days, A, what's the most common thing they say to you or ask you? And B, what's the most common answer you find yourself giving?
Well, the most common question they ask is, how on earth am I ever going to buy a house? How am I going to afford it? And then we have to answer, well, you know, we need to be quite forensic. You are going to need a certain amount of deposit. How do I get my deposit? Most of them are moving back in with their parents if they can, to try and save that way. Giving up their flats that they rent because that's dead money to them. It's not going towards their deposit. Yeah. And obviously, you know, start as quickly as possible so you can have a nice long term on your mortgage. We're looking at people going up for 40-year mortgages now, just to keep that monthly payment manageable. I think we are in a better position than we were certainly, you know, back in the day that you and I remember. Yes. Because things are stress tested. Affordability is absolutely key. You don't get passed by a lender unless you are a pretty safe bet. So the days of self-certification, of pay slips off the internet, which did happen, you know, that's gone. If you manage to get a mortgage offer, the chances are, barring a disaster or a massive spike in rates, you should be able to afford that quite comfortably, because they simply won't lend unless you have that buffer. So that's something to bear in mind. It's sort of the Wild West bad old days, but actually it's not, because the due diligence has been done to such an extent. We are in a better position.
Good.
Definitely.
Okay. A couple of things to talk to you about. One is people who are renting, who look at mortgage holders, mortgagees, and probably think, oh my God, I wish I were you, maybe at any rate. They're also having it rough and having it tough, aren't they?
They are. I mean, the rental market, the private rental market has really taken a hit. There's far less available, and what is there is much more expensive, because of course the landlords have got mortgages, and those mortgages have increased just as much as residential mortgages, and they've got to pass it on somehow. You know, no one is going to run a let when actually it costs them money. It's just not going to happen. So a lot of landlords are actually exiting the market, which means that there's less rental stock available, which then drives up the prices. So it's a vicious cycle, and it's tough. And of course, when you're in rental, you're paying every month. It's very, very difficult to save, extremely difficult. So I think for the people who are in that position, it's even further away. You know, the dream of having your own home, which of course in this country, it's what we want. We are programmed, we are conditioned to want that, to achieve that. We see it as a real success, and quite rightly. And when that's taken away from people, it's it's a bitter pill to swallow. It's hard.
Okay, I've got one more question for you. And I could talk to you about this all day, but I'm not going to. I've got one more question for you. And this is one for which I reckon some people will have scant sympathy, but people got to try and make a living in any way they can. And I've been hearing from sort of individuals at the moment that people in the property business, people who sell and buy property for a living, are finding that their business has been pretty much nuked, that they can't buy, they can't sell, they can't make money, they can't turn a profit. It's been a very profitable business in the past, especially for the people who're really good at doing it. But they're saying that even the best among them are being completely stymied, that it's another industry, a profession that's just going bang. I wonder whether you think that's true.
I think it certainly can be true. Yeah. It's individual, isn't it? But it's certainly the whole property market in every avenue has taken a sort of a 180-degree spin. The landlords, the flippers, as we like to call them, developers. I think we need to remember that the property market in the UK is fundamentally very resilient. It's still, bricks and mortar is still one of the best things, apart from gold, perhaps, to invest in. And there are, ups and downs, peaks and troughs. And the savvy ones will still be all right. The ones who perhaps overstretch themselves, especially with loans and financing, they're going to find it hard.
Sally Mitchell, thank you very much indeed once again for joining us on such a difficult mortgage week. Really appreciate it. I'll be straight back with you after this.